Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Palagopal Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Palagopal Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Shiva Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Yo Shrimadbhagavatam Hamsa Parivajika Acharya Asatana Shishimati History Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Yo Shrimadbhagavatam Hamsa Parivajika Acharya Asatana Shishimati History Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Ananta Koti Vaishnava Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam Srila Prabhupada Swami Hare Krishna. So, welcome to ISKCON Detroit Shrimadbhagavatam morning class. We are now in chapter 12. We've been talking about that the last week. So today we are in Canto 1, and the chapter 12, text 6. But before we get started, we'll just say a quick prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayan Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Cheva Narottamam. Devim Sarasatim Vyasam.
Devim Sarasatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Udirye.
Tato Jayam Udirye.
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki.
So, Canto 1, Srimad Bhagavatam. If you don't have this glorious book at home, I would highly recommend that you come to the temple and acquire one. It is full of amazing knowledge relevant to this day and time as it is always. So definitely pick up your copy today. So Canto 1, Chapter 12, which is the birth of Emperor Parikshit, and it is text 6. Always get the text at the bottom of the page. Kim te kama sura sparha.
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 Mukunda manaso dvijaha.
Mukunda manaso dvijaha.
Mukunda manaso dvijaha.
Mukunda manaso dvijaha.
Adijayor mudam rajna.
Adijayor mudam rajna.
Adijarur muda rajna.
Adijarur mudam rajna.
Shuditasya yate tare.
Shuditasya yate tare.
Shuditasya yate tare.
Shuditasya yate tare. Kim te kama sura sparha.
Kim te kama sura sparha.
Mukunda manaso dvijaha.
Mukunda manaso dvijaha.
Adijarur mudam rajna.
Adijarur mudam rajna.
Shuditasya yate tare.
Shuditasya yate tare.
Kim te kama sura sparha.
Kim te kama sura sparha. Mukunda manaso dvijaha. Adijarur mudam rajna. Shuditasya yate tare. I'll just say it one more time. Kim te kama spura sparsha. Mukunda manaso dvijaha. Adijarur mudam rajna. Shuditasya yate tare. So, word for word. Kim, what for? Te, all those. Kama, objects of sense enjoyment. Sura, of the denizens of heaven. Sparha, aspiration,
aspirations,
Mukunda Manasa,
Kunda Manasa,
of one who is already God conscious.
of one who is already God conscious.
Dvija,
Vicharu,
O Brahmanas,
O Brahmanas,
Adijaru,
Adijaru,
could satisfy,
could satisfy,
Mudam,
Mudam,
pleasure,
pleasure,
Rajna,
Rajni,
of the kings,
of the king,
Shuditasya,
Shuddhidasya,
of the hungry,
of the hungry,
Yatha,
Yatha,
as it is,
as it is,
Itare,
Itare,
in other things.
other things.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Translation. O Brahmanas, the opulence of the king was so enchanting that the denizens of heaven aspired for it. But because he was absorbed in the service of the Lord, nothing could satisfy him except the Lord's service. Please repeat. O Brahmanas,
O Brahmanas,
the opulence of the king
the opulence of the king
was so enchanting
was so enchanting
that the denizens of heaven
that the regions of heaven
aspired for it.
aspired for it.
But because he was absorbed
Because he was observed
in the service of the Lord,
in the service of the Lord,
nothing could satisfy him
nothing could satisfy him
except the Lord's service.
except the Lord's service.
Purport. There are two things in the world which can satisfy living beings. When one is materially engrossed, he is satisfied only by sense gratification. But when one is liberated from the conditions of the material modes, he's satisfied only by rendering loving service for the satisfaction of the Lord. This means that the living being is constitutionally a servitor and not one who is served. Being illusioned by the conditions of the external energy, one falsely thinks himself to be the served. But actually, he is not served. He is servant of the senses, like lust, desire, anger, avarice, pride, madness, and intolerance. When one is in his proper senses by attainment of spiritual knowledge, he realizes that he is not the master of the material world, but is only a servant of the senses. At that time, he begs for the service of the Lord, and thus becomes happy without being illusioned by so-called material happiness. Maharaj Yudhishthira was one of the liberated souls, and therefore for him there was no pleasure in a vast kingdom, good wife, obedient brothers, happy subjects, and prosperous world. These blessings automatically follow for a pure devotee, even though the devotee does not aspire for them. The example set herein is exactly suitable. It is said that one who is hungry is never satisfied by anything other than food. The whole material world is full of hungry living beings. The hunger is not for good food, shelter, or sense gratification. The hunger is for the spiritual atmosphere. Due to ignorance only, they think that the world is dissatisfied because there is not sufficient food, shelter, defense, and object of sense gratification. This is called illusion. When the living being is hungry for spiritual satisfaction, he is misrepresented by material hunger. But the foolish leaders cannot see that even the people who are most scrumptiously materially satisfied are still hungry. And what is their hunger and poverty? This hunger is actually for spiritual food, spiritual shelter, spiritual defense, and spiritual sense gratification. This can be obtained in the association of the Supreme Spirit, Lord Sri Krishna, and therefore one who has them cannot be attracted by the so-called food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification of the material world, even if they are relished by the denizens of the heavenly planets. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 8:16, it is said by the Lord that even in the topmost planet of the universe, namely Brahmaloka, where the duration of life is multiplied by millions of years by earth calculations, one cannot satisfy his hunger. Such hunger can be satisfied only when the living being is situated in immortality, which is attained in the spiritual sky, far, far above the Brahmaloka, in the association of Lord Mukunda, the Lord who awards his devotees the transcendental pleasure of liberation. Okay. Om Jnana Tirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Dhanamrita Shri Vishakam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurani Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Turvyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitana Bhavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So translation one more time. O Brahmanas, the opulence of the king was so enchanting that the denizens of heaven aspired for it. But because he was absorbed in the service of the Lord, nothing could satisfy him except the Lord's service. Jai. So, this particular chapter, Parikshit Maharaj was just born, or is taking birth. And although during the time in the womb, the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama was meant to kill him, the Lord personally actually protected him in the womb of Uttara, his mother. And now the sages have assembled to perform the birth ceremony and predict the future goals of this extraordinary child, right? So they're all over there talking about it. We see, Shuta Goswami is with all the sages to discuss this, and Shukadev Goswami is directly instructing Parikshit Maharaj on this glorious Bhagavatam. So many conversations take place within the Bhagavatam. And mainly these learned brahmanas and sages, examining this child, Parikshit, his lineage, they were able to foretell that this was going to be a great devotee. He was going to be equal to the best of the kings and endowed with so many good qualities and stuff. So here, this chapter actually becomes very important to us because this particular chapter is introducing us to Maharaj Parikshit, who actually is the ideal hearer, the ideal way of hearing the Shrimadbhagavatam is taught through Parikshit Maharaj. So we can learn a great deal about how to hear, right, from him. So in this text, the Vedic system of hearing, right, is very important. We've seen it time and time again. Our disciplic succession requires from hearing, one after another. That is how the message has been passed down. So these sages were not ordinary, like just astrologers or like mental speculators. These were actually self-realized souls that have come together, these Mahatmas, to understand, this Shrimadbhagavatam, this vision, this which is non-different from Krishna, to understand this message. And Srila Prabhupada also explains to us that the real qualification Srila Prabhupada explains to us that the real qualification of is character and devotion, right? Not just birth, because we can't choose who our mother or father is, right? And stuff like that. But doesn't mean that has to alter your character or your devotion to the Lord. And we see this with Maharaj Parikshit. He was born in a very royal family, right? His lineage was of greatness. But that was not it. It was also due to his devotional qualities that he became the king that he is. So the first thing within this particular verse I'd like to bring up is the protection of a devotee, right? If we remember who this child is, this Parikshit Maharaj, he was personally saved in the womb by Lord Krishna. In fact, the child within the womb, they say, like when a mother is carrying a child, like the child is constantly remembering the Lord because it's in such a difficult position and it does not actually want to take birth into this material world. It's praying and begging to go back to the Lord and so forth. So that can, the consciousness of the child within the womb and stuff. So when Uttara mother was carrying Parikshit Maharaj, there was still a lot of turbulence that was happening within the battlefield. And Ashwatthama had sent the Brahmastra. He released this very powerful weapon, like extremely powerful. No one could protect this child, right? Not Arjun, not any of the weapons, not any medicine, nothing. It is only Krishna that could protect his devotees. And we even know that Yudhishthira Maharaj was an ideal king. And, in the lineage, this grandson, Parikshit, was going to be born. And this Parikshit Maharaj, he was also a very, very ideal king. But when this Ashwatthama released this Brahmastra weapon, right, the Lord is situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma himself. So he himself went into the womb and protected Parikshit from this Brahmastra weapon. My Guru Maharaj also gave a wonderful lecture on this one, and he was saying that, people are very proud of science today. Like, I think India is sending to the moon, and I think the US is also following with some astronauts going to circumambulate the moon. I'm like, okay. So very proud of our science today. We have all kinds of technology, science, and so forth. But this particular Brahmastra weapon was so sophisticated, right? He was mentioning that, if this room was filled with billions of people, or 3, right? And stuff, but you release the Brahmastra weapon and stuff, and it would go directly to this target. So if you're in the 3rd row, 2 people over, it would hit exactly that individual, right? Not like in today's technology where a bomb destroys everything in sight, if it's dropped. So this is thus the technology. But anyhow, the importance of this is that that when a devotee is fully dependent on the Lord, fully surrendered unto the Lord, right? Krishna takes the full responsibility to protect that Lord, or protect that person, that devotee. So in Bhagavad Gita 9.22, Krishna says, Yoga Sham Vahamya Aham. I personally preserve what my devotee has and carry what he lacks, right? So Maharaj Parikshit's life began with this divine position, right? He was a protection. He was protected from the very beginning. And therefore, his whole life became an example of devotion, right? Gratitude towards the Lord. So, and if we look at King Yudhishthira, right, being the ideal king, and why was he the ideal king? He was because he was involved in the service of the Lord, right? There's nothing that could satisfy Maharaj Yudhishthira except for the service of the Lord. And that is the nature of the devotee. He wants to engage in the service of the Lord and nothing else. And thus, being in the service of the Lord is also indebted to his devotee and will give protection. So in the scriptures, we read also about so many stories come up in Bhagavatam. So I thought like we can maybe talk about some of these stories too. So there were many exalted kings in Bhagavatam, so it was hard to pick and choose, but picked a few. So qualities of the great devotee kings. Right? So the sages, they predicted that Parikshit Maharaj was going to possess all good qualities. But what are these qualities, right? So Srila Prabhupada explains that all good qualities automatically manifest in a devotee, right? So when the devotee starts to serve the Lord, starts to participate in chanting, regulative services, doing regular sadhana, right? All these good qualities are starting to appear because the devotee is also purifying, right? And in Shrimadbhagavatam, there's a verse in chapter 5, Canto 5, chapter 18, text 12. Yastri bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarver gunais tatra samastite sura, which means one who has unflinching devotion to the Supreme Lord automatically develops all good qualities of the demigods. Now the demigods are also in the material plane, but the good qualities are significantly higher. Now, when we look at an example, we see that, like Lord Ramachandra, right? He was obviously the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he appeared as the ideal king, right? And possessed all of these wonderful qualities. So, Parashar Muni, the father of Vyasadeva, has stated that the word Bhagavan can be used for personality who has 6 opulences in the unlimited degree. Right? Unlimited 6 opulences. And anyone who's attended the Bhakti Riksha programs on Saturdays, we've been discussing these 6 opulences. So definitely join the Saturday Bhakti Riksha. You get to learn a lot more. So what are these 6 opulences? If we all remember from that, it's all beauty, wealth, knowledge, strength, fame, and also renunciation. So the word God can be given to anyone who has these 6 opulences at the same time in full capacity, right? And so forth. So when God appears, he also appears to perform his spiritual activities, right? And so it's not like anyone can say that they're God. They have to have these particular qualities. Right? Like, I'm not God, you're not God. We don't have all these qualities in full at the same time and come and perform these supreme activities that we hear about. So, unfortunately, we are all subjected to material miseries because we are conditioned by this material nature. So, in the material world, you can have someone who's rich, but he may not be famous. Or if he's famous, he may not be the strongest. There's always some kind of lack in these qualities. But when we see Lord Ramchandra, he displayed all these qualities, right? Even though he was sent into the forest, right? His father had told him, you now have to go into the forest, a whole long story and stuff. And he accepted that without any hesitation. He was able to renounce very quickly. which you and I, if someone told us to go into the forest, we'd be like, no, we're not leaving our dwelling and stuff. Or we would fight to keep our dwelling, right? So he didn't say that, he didn't say like, whoa, what will people think? I'm supposed to be the next king, like I'm supposed to rule or whatever the situation would be. But why do people remember Lord Ram's rule so well, though? Because there was no suffering at all, right? If you looked at how he ruled the society, right, he was always engaged in worshiping the Lord, even though he's the Lord himself. And the society was also engaged in worshiping the Lord. Lord Ram would go sometimes, when he came back from the forest, he would go back. He ruled over Ayodhya Dham, and then he would go in disguise to see what people were thinking, right, in front of his citizens, how they were feeling, if there was any complaints. And he would find, if there was any complaint, he would rectify it immediately. And he would see that the streets of Ayodhya were, washed with perfumed water, like everyone is happy, well-fed, everything was required, right? This was in Treta Yuga also. It wasn't in Satya Yuga, but it was felt as if it was in Satya Yuga, right? There was no old age, disease. People were able to choose their time of departure. Like, it was such a great society. So in this chapter, we will also see that Parikshit Maharaj is also glorified with these characteristics, and he's compared to Lord Ram in many of these instances. So his opulence, his Parikshit Maharaj, he also had many wonderful qualities, right? These great qualities of these devotee kings. And just real quickly too, the role of the Brahmanas are also very important. And in this verse, we can see that the sages played a very vital role in the showing us the importance of this Brahminical culture, right? So society has to be guided by spiritually elevated persons. We see in Lord Ramachandra some of the other examples, Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj, many of the other kings that we see in Bhagavatam, they were all guided by spiritually elevated persons. They had brahmanas that they referred to at times, to understand how to rule over. They were responsible of the ruling in the society and so forth, but they were also took guidance from those that were spiritually elevated, that were maintaining this Brahminical culture. So Srila Prabhupada often emphasizes that in modern civilization, we're suffering, right? Who are our leaders taking guidance from? Sometimes it may be TikTok, unfortunately, right? So it's very very hard on the citizens, because there's no proper guidance. There's no genuine Brahminical culture that the leaders of today are taking guidance from. And leadership without spiritual vision leads to chaos. And we can see that. Just turn the news on and you will find that. So Parikshit Maharaj, he also became a very powerful emperor because he always respected the Brahmanas. And he understood that the Kshatriyas, yes, their position is to rule, but the Brahmanas are there to guide, right? And so both must work together to please the Lord, right? They're not working for Brahmanas aren't doing it for their selfish reasons, and Kshatriyas are not ruling for their selfish reasons. They're doing it to please the Lord. So that environment is also very important to have these good qualities and so forth. So another example in story that we hear in Bhagavatam is of Maharaj Shibi. He was a very generous, very magnanimous king, and his citizens were also very well taken care of, just like how a father takes care of his children. So anytime anyone had any, issue, they can come to the King Shibi and he would naturally resolve their issues or give whatever he has. So the demigods wanted to test him and so forth. So Lord Indra and Agni, they decided that they were going to test this character of King Shibi. And so they took the form of an eagle and of a dove or a pigeon or some type of bird. And then when the pigeon, the eagle was flying and trying to chase and, capture this pigeon. And then the pigeon went to King Shibi to seek refuge. And when you come under the guidance, right, under the protection of these kings, because they were so great, right, they protected you. So the eagle then came to the king and just quickly say the story that the eagle was like, that's my pigeon, like, give it back to me, I'm hungry kind of situation. But the king is like, no, he's under my protection now. Whatever you want from him, I will give you. And he wanted the flesh of the pigeon. So the king is like, no, you take my flesh in equal proportion, equal weight of the pigeon, I will give you mine. But somehow the pigeon's weight kept increasing and increasing. And so the king kept giving his flesh and so forth and kept giving. And so the demigods then understood, how magnanimous, how generous this particular king was, and his character was as complete as is. So the demigods then were very pleased and showed their identity, restored the flesh of King Shibi. And so when a ruler is very God conscious, the citizens become also very happy and stuff. So just like in Bhagavatam, we also hear of kings who are not God conscious. So on the flip side, there was King Vena, who lived thousands of years ago also. He was the son of King Anga and Sunita. And due to his material lineage, he actually was very wicked in his childhood, killing playmates and animals, and he was not a very good individual with very poor character. But he ascended the throne. And when King Vena ascended this throne, he was very much an atheist. So he said no to any kind of rituals, no charity, no offerings. He proclaimed himself to be the ultimate ruler, right? The ultimate Lord. I'm maintaining you. Why do you have to go anywhere else or worship anything else? I'm the one who's maintaining you. So much ego. And so then what happened? The land became very dry. The citizens became very hungry and were very unsatisfied, and the grains were not produced from the ground, and clouds were not showering waters, and so much suffering, right? And stuff, because this king was completely godless, right? Did not take any guidance, so the sages were very, did not like the situation, and attempted to advise him, like, you're not doing what's proper and stuff like that. But he was so arrogant and disrespectful towards Vishnu that the sages had to take action. So the sages then ended up killing him, but using him to sacrifice out of his thigh, they were able to produce, like, actually another dark figure came from his thighs, which was all of Vena's sins. And so then that all the sins were then departed to the forest. And then from his right arm, we hear that King Prithu was emerged from that right arm and stuff. And he was actually a very good king, an incarnation of Vishnu, right? He showed us, again, the righteousness. And so he became a very legendary king as well, too, and showed us how to bring about prosperity, how to appreciate, and how to I guess, I'm losing the word, but how Bhumi Devi, right, the goddess of goddess of the earth, how she should be protected, right, and how later on, she also gave so many grains and things like that. So we can see how to rule nicely, right, with God-centered, and what happens when you rule when you're not God-centered. So both examples are given in Bhagavatam to us. So in general, the more we regularly hear, we take the example of Parikshit Maharaj, and if the more we're able to hear Shrimad Bhagavatam on a regular basis, the more we can become God conscious, the more we purify, because this book is non-different than Krishna himself, right? And stuff. The more we associate with devotees, coming to Saturday Bhakti Rikshas or any Bhakti Rikshas in your area, by coming to any of these retreats that are going to be taking place, these things help us purify and help us become associated with those who are God-centered. And accepting guidance from Guru and Shastra. Srila Prabhupada has given painstakingly so much information of how to follow, how to live a peaceful and happy life. If we just learn to accept the guidance of any of the Gurus and of Shastras, then all of this auspiciousness, good character, can also come into play. And finally, just wanted to, I lost my spot. This particular Shrimad Bhagavatam, this particular chapter, when we are going through it, we'll see how true greatness of an individual is measured by these devotional qualities. So developing these devotional qualities is very, very important. And society, how to make good of a society. I know they were talked about yesterday a little bit too and stuff, but guided by spiritually realized persons. Right? Take shelter, take inspiration from those who are God-centered, and try to understand. This is not something that is followed blindly either, right? Come, hear, learn, understand how to do this, and so forth. And devotion to Krishna, right? It's the root of all good qualities. He is the source of all these good qualities. Where else do you need to go, right? If you want some of them, go to him and stuff. So this is a little bit about this verse. It's actually quite a long verse and stuff. There's so many good topics. Each topic can be talked about in a class of its own. So thank you for your patience and for listening and hearing today this wonderful Shrimad Bhagavatam. Thank you so much. Please forgive me if I misstated anything. Grantaraj Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If anyone has any questions or comments, we can discuss at this time.
Thanks for the wonderful class. Like many examples of kings, like how good they rule, and even the examples of non-God-centered kings were very amazing. And yeah, one thing I observed in the Bhagavad is spiritual sense gratification. What it could be, spiritual sense gratification. I'm a little anxious on that.
Yeah, spiritual sense gratification. Yes, so Srila Prabhupada gives us, he says, right, like just this dancing, what do devotees do? Dancing, feasting, right, and stuff, and association. So if we come to the temple, like on a Sunday feast, what is everyone enjoying, right? That's spiritual sense gratification. We're hearing this awesome nectar, right, that fills our heart with so much inspiration. And during these classes, during these wonderful devotees that come and speak and stuff, we're tasting Krishna Prasadam. Every one of our senses gets, so much pleasure, right? This gratification. When we taste Krishna Prasadam, how satisfying is our mouth, our tongue, and so forth. When we see the Lord, Kunj Bihari every day is full of all six opulences, dressed to the max, right? And stuff. Like, it's such a feast for our eyes to come and see. Like, in fact, I see like Mataji like running to the temple in the morning to come and see Kunj Bihari, right? So satisfying for our eyes. And when we associate with the devotees, we get so much love and affection and so forth. So this is our spiritual sense gratification. Fully participate in sense gratification spiritually. So it is the best. And the more we see this is just the reciprocation of Krishna, right? We come and we serve Krishna so nicely, and he reciprocates back to us in such wonderful forms and associations. So participate in that, definitely. So that's our wonderful fortune. But thank you so much for your question. Hopefully that helps. So, any other questions or thoughts?
Thank you.
If not, we will continue with verse 7 tomorrow. Thank you. Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Hare Krishna.